Hello! Welcome to Traveling Through Life, a podcast on the go. I'm your host, Tara, and the founder of the blog Travel with Teamic, which is where this adventure all started. Traveling Through Life, a podcast on the go, is a fun and quirky show that delves into all things travel and adventures from the road, in the air, and in between here and there. Don't forget to subscribe so that you get notifications each week when a new episode is released. I can't wait to share this season's conversations with you. We cover a variety of topics within travel, and it's my hope that you'll find one or many that resonate with you on a personal level. This week on Traveling Through Life, a podcast on the go, we meet Paula Stanghetta of MP Tours. She's also my mom. It's thanks to her that I've got my travel bug. She chats with us about being a lifelong traveler, navigating the pandemic as a tour operator, missing flights, scary travel experiences, and the joy of language learning. Paula shares how she started MP Tours, which is a small group food and wine tour company that travels to off-the-beaten-path destinations in Italy. Last, we get deep discussing how travel has renewed her faith in humanity, which I think is so important, especially in today's times. Okay, let's dive in. Hi, Mom.
All right. That's weird. I expect you to start with "Hi, Mom."
You are my mom. So for anyone who's listening today, I do have my mom on the show. She is my very first guest on the podcast for great reason. My mom is the reason why I have the travel bug. Everything from languages and interest in other cultures and history stems from her and the amazing experiences that she provided our family growing up along with my father. So Mom, we're going to get into a bit about you and your travel story today.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and where you're calling in from today, because
So you're starting with the easy questions, right?
Yeah, you gotta ease you in.
Let's start with the very easy one, which is I'm currently in my home and my home office in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. So I'm a really lifelong traveler. People talk about lifelong learners and lifelong whatever. I'm a lifelong traveler. I can remember being very young and being excited when my parents would say, "We're going on a trip." Albeit it was a 5-hour car ride with 7 of us to visit family in Michigan in the U.S. But just the prospect of traveling just conjured up for me so many opportunities and experiences that I've always been interested in travel. That love of travel turned into me becoming a tour operator 10 years ago. And so I operate a company. I own and operate a company called MP Tours. And I design and deliver travel experiences, mostly to Italy. I can talk about where else a little bit later, and it's regional travel. So the kind of travel where you can savor and enjoy your time a little bit by spending more than a day or a night in a place. So that's a little bit of background on me. I don't know what I missed, or, that's a hard question to answer.
Okay, so we've got who you are. You're my mom. You're a tour operator. You're a lover of travel in the world. Yes. And we've got where you're calling in from. So you kind of touched on my first question, which was do you remember the first trip that you ever took? I know you did road trips and stuff growing up, but is there one that stands out for you in particular?
I don't think no. There's no one trip that stands out for me. And I must admit, as I get older, the ones that are closest to me stand out the most for me. But it's just the sense of being a child and the wonderment of going on the road and not knowing what's ahead and having your own ideas about what this trip might be and what we might be doing. So I do remember, however, that as a family of 7, so my 4 siblings and my parents, we first traveled in a station wagon, and we had no seatbelts, and we had no restrictions on where we're supposed to sit. We just got in the car and drove. And the destination was to family in Flint, Michigan. And I do remember this. I was always car sick. And so the part about traveling that I dreaded was getting into a car. And these were the days before gravel and whatever else people would use to deal with motion sickness. But I would just be flat out in the back of the station wagon and feeling nauseous the whole way. So the getting there was never fun. But once we were there and saw family and got to, go shopping, which was a big thing for us, that was great. And the only trip I remember more in terms of driving was we got pulled over by another driver. My father didn't realize that the station wagon was just spewing all kinds of smoke. And the driver behind him saw these 5 kids jumping around and playing around in the station wagon. And he motioned my dad to pull over. And of course, we had some car trouble. So, that's the worst that it's ever been.
I've never heard that story before.
I know, I'm trying to save something for you, So.
Do you think that Baba or Nanu influenced, or if either of them did at all, influenced more like your travel bug? And for those listening, Nanu is an anglicized version of nonno, which is the Italian word for grandpa, and Baba is like an anglicized-ish version of grandma for Poles and Ukrainians.
I would have to say that neither of my parents, neither of your grandparents really inspired travel. Travel was onerous for them. And it meant, packing up and organizing children and dealing with all of these kinds of things that I think were more trouble for them than they were a joy. Yeah. And they never traveled. In fact, the first time they traveled was probably to Florida when I was in grade 9. And I don't recall them having any other travels until then. Of course, they retired and traveled to different places like Las Vegas and Arizona. But in the meantime, I introduced my mom to travel, and as a part of my work, I took her to many places, and she absolutely loved it. So I think there was a latent desire, at least for my mom, your Baba, to travel, but not my dad.
I could see that with Baba for sure. Nanu's more of the homebody.
Yep.
How do you think your upbringing has impacted your travel decisions as an adult, or what you did with us as a family? Because I'm one of 4, which is similar to 5. It's, more logistics and more money and more considerations in terms of what kinds of travel. And even I guess pre-kids, how do you think your upbringing, because you traveled a ton before you had any of us?
Yes, I think that perhaps it was my reading that inspired my desire to travel. And so I was a voracious reader. I also very early on, I can remember in grade 3 or 4, before learning another language in school was a thing, that I was intrigued by people who could speak a different language, and they didn't live in our neighborhood. So I wanted to find out more about people who lived elsewhere, what their lives were like, and learning their language was a step in that direction. So I would say my early experiences as a family didn't impact travel, but the kinds of things that I was inspired by through reading mostly had a huge impact on my travel career, if you want to call it that.
Desire to get out there. That's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting too when you talk about other people speaking other languages, because and you and I have talked about this a bit. I never thought of you as someone who grew up in a multilingual household, but you grew up with Polish and Ukrainian and Italian around you in the house and in the community. And like, even today we're finding out about some Russian
Yes.
that like
And
you grew up with, which was so random. But
I know.
yeah,
And
that was a part of your day-to-day too.
And, we can look back and describe it that way. But I just kind of thought everybody grew up like that because we grew up in a very multicultural neighborhood. And we're exposed to different cultures, albeit mostly Italian because of where we lived, but very close around that, the Polish and Ukrainian. And then through my grandfather's general store in the early 60s, there were Russians and there were all kinds of different, and Irish and all kinds of different cultures, the Finnish community as well. Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, not too long ago, I was back in the Soo, which is our home, Sault Ste. Marie, and I was driving past the Finnish steam baths that have now all been boarded up, but we grew up with those in our community. We didn't think twice about what was there, whether it was an Italian butcher store. It was just common. It was just what we grew up with, and now we name it as multicultural or something else. It was just life as we knew it.
Yeah, so interesting. When was the first trip that you took on your own? Because I know you did a bunch of traveling in your 20s. When did that kick off?
The first trip that was solo, I arranged it, organized it, and went on it was in 1978. It was my first or second year of university, and we did the quintessential Caribbean trip. We went to Ocho Rios in Jamaica. I went with two of my friends from university, and we left Sault Ste. Marie with our heavy winter coats and landed in this sweltering, humid Ocho Rios, saying, what are we going to do with these coats? They were on our laps as we went from the airport in this non-air conditioned bus to our hotel, and we just threw them under our beds for the next week. So that was the first one. It was like an all-inclusive, as they call it today, and that was the first one. It was amazing. It was so exciting.
That's super cool. And then after that, like you were in Europe a few times. When did all of those happen?
So during my 20s, I went on a 2-week Caribbean cruise with my friend, who then became my sister-in-law over the years. So that was wonderful. I also did a 6-week backpacking tour of Europe, landed in England, went to Switzerland and France and Italy. Pre-internet days, I may say, because I know that's a big impact on traveling. I look back and I think, how did that ever happen? But you managed, and lots of travel happened.
I'm a little jealous, to be honest.
Yeah, why?
I feel like that's a whole other adventure. I swear that it's going to be a trend where people like hashtag, travel without Wi-Fi. You know what I mean? Because it's a proper untapped experience. Yeah.
It is. And I mean, people have been traveling for eons without the internet and have had quite spectacular travels. So we can do that, and it's not an issue. But when I think of it now, what the internet can help you with, it's a whole different way of traveling. But so did that. Went to Germany a couple of times to see the Passion Play and to meet a friend who was living in Italy at the time. And we just met up in Germany and traveled around there together. So, that was really the extent of it, other than little road trips, going to Toronto for shopping trips and stuff like that. Yeah.
So cool. Throughout your travels, I guess as an adult, either with our family or maybe from your 20s going forward, have you had any like travel traditions for yourself? Either things that you are like themes for you when you travel, or I don't know, little habits or things that you do when you're traveling?
In the beginning, I used to keep a journal when I traveled. And you may laugh at that because I remember when we all went to Europe in 2002, I bought all of you journals because I thought if I liked to journal, then everybody would like to journal. And everybody but you, after the first day, said, forget this journal, tossed it out the window. So I used to do that for reflection and for remembering things. I would send postcards home to everybody, always tried to involve people because I did a lot of this travel solo before solo travel was a thing. So I would think, that journaling was part of it, trying to connect with others, but also just trying to be open to whatever experiences were happening. I really had no idea sometimes. There was no set itinerary except knowing where I was going, that my plane ticket was taking me. So, which is so unlike me because nowadays I do very structured.
Well, it's different being a mom because I feel like, and being a tour operator, like in those roles, there does need to be more structure and planning, because you're considering other people. But it makes sense to me that you would have done differently before. Have you ever had any scary experiences? I don't think we've talked about this before. Have you ever had any close calls on a trip?
I have been so fortunate that I haven't had close calls with the exception of one. And I was in Germany. I had gone, I don't recall where to, and I was leaving the place, walking on my own, and I thought I heard footsteps behind me. And so I just started walking a little faster. It was nighttime, and the footsteps increased behind me. And I had heard once that someone said, if you're ever in this situation, turn around and confront the person and say, are you following me? And I'm not sure that would be the greatest advice today, but that's what I did. And it was a guy, and he just turned around and left. I just came on very aggressively. Why are you following me? Are you following me? And he just left. And I thought, in hindsight, that probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. And maybe it was innocuous, but, I read somewhere, do that. And other than that, I have so many more good experiences as opposed to scary experiences. Really
That's awesome. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
I'm glad that scenario worked out for you. That is not a good one to be, and I'm sure many women can relate to that as well, whether it's on the road or at home. That's a common one, unfortunately.
For sure.
Yeah. Have you, so I feel like I know how this is going to come back, but have you ever missed a flight?
Yes, I have. And thinking that...
Really?
Absolutely. So it was not for pleasure. It was for work. And here I was just heading to Ottawa and flying out of Toronto. And one of the things that I do with travel is I really plan to get to the airport early. I always say better to be 2 hours early than 2 seconds late. So I was very proud of myself because my flight wasn't until 8, and I think I got there at 6:30 or something. No luggage or anything. It's just a day flight. And I got there, checked my gate on my boarding pass, went to the gate, and I'm sitting there and I'm feeling no stress. And I'm thinking, wow, I must be really early because there's nobody here. And so I just sat and I continued to read. And it was about 15 minutes before boarding. I didn't clue in at all. And there was nobody there. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to look around. And I saw that the gate had changed. And so I ran to the next gate, and I'm running up, and they're going, are you Paula? And I said, yes. How do you know that? Well, we've been calling your name. They said your flight just left. And I said, this is awful because I had to be there for a business meeting. Luckily, my flight was booked earlier than I needed to get to the destination. They said, we've rebooked you on the next flight. This was a route that had many flights almost on the hour every day. So again, I was very fortunate because I got there early. I missed the early flight, got the next one, and still got there in time for my meeting. Recently,
That is lucky.
I can
That's very
share
lucky.
another quick story about missing a flight.
Yeah.
We were just on a river cruise, as you know, and we had a 2-hour window to make our connecting flight. But because of the intersection of many situations, our flight from Canada left late, and when we got to Germany, the whole transfer situation was really tight. And I did something I've never done before, run through the airport with a migraine and with baggage. And we got to our gate. No, we got to our seat. We were the last people on the plane at 1:19, and the doors closed at 1:20. So that was the closest.
I kind of wish you and Dad had a GoPro to film the two of you running through the airport.
Yeah, it was not a pretty sight. It was pretty brutal, but we made it. And so,
you know what, though? Are you a traveler if you haven't had to run through the airport to catch a flight? I feel like that's a rite of passage.
It really is. And I think maybe I haven't had enough near misses to talk about, but you know what? They're not pleasant to experience. They're pleasant when they turn out for the good.
Yeah. Mom, have you ever hitchhiked? I don't think I've asked you this either.
Yes. This was on a trip to Los Angeles, and it was with your aunt. And we had done one of these fly and drive trips that were popular at the time. So you fly into San Francisco or Los Angeles, and then you drive up the coast and fly out of the other place. So we rented a car. That was part of the ticket. And the car broke down. Picture this. Here are the three of us. I heard
this story.
Yes. Sitting in the front seat. I was driving. The car broke down. So I pulled over. This was on a freeway, unlike any I'd ever been on. Multiple lanes. And I had left my hair in curlers because I figured it would be a good idea to keep them in curlers until we got to our next destination. So we pulled over and I said, we can't go any further. No cell phones at that time. So we couldn't even call the rental car company or the travel company. Pulled over, hitchhiked. Somebody pulled over and we told them the problem. 2 of us went and left one behind. Oh, that's for another story. And we got a ride to the rental car company, and they came back with another vehicle for us. So that was the only hitchhiking. Very, maybe not high stakes or anything, but on the highway, you can't make some of these things up.
No. Okay. I also want to ask you some stuff to do with language, because as you alluded to, you are also a big reader, and both of us are polyglots. We speak a few languages and we love words. So can you share with people which languages you speak and how you came to know them?
Yes. So my mother tongue is English. The first language that I explored was French. And that was kind of self-study. So one of my teachers had a French language book that she shared with me when I was in grade 4, and I just worked through that on my own. And then as things progressed, took French in school, and then through travel added to that. So I'm highly functional in French. I'm not fluent in it. The same goes for Italian. That was mostly self-study and then university and a little bit of high school. Spanish is my favorite language. I love the lyrical nature of it. I love the words. I love the intonation. I love the accent. So those 4 are my primary ones. Then I studied German for a year and lovingly and wonderfully just got an opportunity to practice a little bit of it when we were in Vienna recently. And so it was a wonderful return to that. And then in our home, we spoke nothing but English, but have snippets of Polish, and I would say more common, colloquial Polish and Ukrainian. And I'm not even sure what the mix of, I think it's more Ukrainian than anything. So those, so it is a mix of all of those. And it's just something that I had an affinity for and an interest in. And I think whatever you have interest in, you follow. And that's where languages led me.
You also took Japanese as an adult at U of W, did you not?
I did, yes. And I still want to go back to it and return to it. When I traveled to Japan in 2010, I was enthralled by the culture, by the people, by the beauty of the place. And I wanted to learn more of the language. And so when I came back, I enrolled in an online Japanese course. So I know very little about it, but it's the most different language of all the ones that I've learned. And it's hard to get your head around different conventions. But I think it's beautiful. And when I was in high school, I did Japanese dance. And so it was almost like I was revisiting.
I didn't know this.
Yeah. So we had a course at school that you could learn Japanese dance. And I just found it so mesmerizing and so beautiful. It's still something that's there that in my spare time, I'll hopefully pursue a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool. And I know that you do, like, with your tour company, with MP Tours and you having the tours in Italy, I know that for like a year or two, you took daily Italian lessons to be able to help liaise with your travelers and things as well. Like, you had Italian prior to that, but you stay pretty fresh with it.
Yes, I came across a language program that teaches a language differently than anything I'd ever been exposed to. You know, it's really strange because you learn a language for many years in school, but you graduate not necessarily being able to speak the language. And that was certainly true for me. And I learned something fundamental about language acquisition. And that is the best way to learn a language is not to speak it. It's to listen to it. And this language program does that, provides you multiple opportunities. It doesn't focus on memorizing grammar and memorizing all the conventions of the language. It exposes you to the language with topics that are interesting and fun. And you learn first by listening. And I think that's really important because
it's more similar to an acquisition.
Exactly. Think of it as children. We don't speak for the first 2 years of anything intelligible. We listen for 2 years and it becomes part of us. And then we start to speak. But we never do that in learning a language. It accelerated my learning of the language and really helped in being there because I remember 10 years ago, I could not easily translate in the moment for my guests. Now, I have no problem doing that because I've spent the past 5 years listening to more Italian and just being much more comfortable. Amazing.
What's the name of the program in case people are interested in checking it out for themselves?
It's called Italiano Automatico. And
cool. I will also add that into the show notes for people.
Alberto and his team of people are just fabulous. Yeah, it's a great program.
Speaking of words, do you have in any of the languages that you know, do you have any favorite words or phrases? Like anything that sticks in your brain or just kind of makes you smile a little?
So there's a phrase that has been part of my life for a long time, and it was my Aunt Elda, who was a big inspiration for travel, would always say, and it's the phrase, piano, piano, va lontano. That's from an Italian song. It's the opposite of piano, piano, va lontano, which means slowly but surely, or taking things slowly, you will go a long way. It's kind of that tortoise and the hare thing, rather than rushing through anything, be it life or a conversation or work or anything. Slowly, slowly, you will go far. And you know what? It's funny because until you asked me that question about the phrase, I forgot that it was my aunt who was my supreme inspiration for travel. And
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that. I don't know why, but she's
I
been
could
gone.
see Elda doing that for sure.
Yes, yeah. But she traveled everywhere, and yeah, she was a big, huge inspiration. I want to be like Auntie Elda. See, Elda.
Yeah. I could see
Yeah.
that. I could see that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna switch lanes a little bit here. We've talked a bit about this already, but tech and travel today have like such a huge influence on each other. But I'm curious for you because like you traveled in the age of no internet to begin as a traveler. How has tech changed the way that you travel now? How did you prepare or experience your travel before all of the tech that we have now? And then and how has that changed now?
Before, it was maps and books. That's how I planned travel. I would read about places. I would then get maps and have that visual, that physical right in front and say, well, what if we went from here to there, and, use a ruler to figure out distances and all of that. So it was more hands-on and you had to do more work. How it's changed today is I could say, what are the best things to do in location X, Y, or Z? And somebody else is going to tell me. I just have to know how to type and put it in. But I think the difference between traveling without internet and traveling with internet is not just about the prep. It's about what you're doing once you're there. And I think that's the bigger interference and the travesty of having the internet while traveling and while being away. Of course, people want to take pictures, and our phone is the way for doing that. And it's so immediate. And I find that when you're so focused on taking pictures about what you're doing, you miss what you're actually doing. So our phones are good for all kinds of things, the least of which is perhaps taking pictures. But I find that you miss the moment. And that's where tech is having a huge impact on travel. What you see through your phone lens is not the same as what you see by looking at the cheese maker or the pasta maker or on a boat ride, for instance. You just see through this lens. But yet when you take that phone away, your field of vision has expanded so much. So I think we are so focused on documenting it and sharing that with other people in the moment that we lose what's really happening. And that's how tech, for me, really impacts the traveling experience. It's great to help beforehand, and I don't dismiss that. But there comes a time when you need to put the tech away and live the travel versus only document it.
Would you say the same thing for like Google Maps and translators, or are you pretty happy to have those now? Maybe thinking from both perspective of when you're working on the tours, but also when you're traveling, because I assume that answer might be a little bit different.
So Google Translate, first of all, I rarely use it. I may use it when I'm there and I don't have a word that I need, but I don't use tech in that way when I'm traveling. Google Maps, I must say I'm not very good at using them. Where I will use them is on an itinerary. If I want to know the distance from place to place, I will do that. I really rely on you, Tara. That's why I love traveling with you, because you're better at operating some of those apps, and your ease and facility with it is just, I go, I wish Tara was here, or when you're there, I'm just happy to let you do those kinds of things. But where it can be useful is if I'm driving. I love the GPS. I love engaging that. And it takes away so much anxiety around getting from one place to another. And I just love that. And I have no difficulty traveling in Italy, which is mostly where I travel. And I love that aspect of technology. So there are things I like and things that I could leave behind.
So true. So true. We've spoken about MP Tours a little bit, but we haven't really talked about it yet. Can you share with people what MP Tours is, how it came to be, where you take people?
Sure. So let's do the Coles Notes version of that, perhaps. How it came to be. Back in 2013, and I won't do 11 years of history, there was a moment when I said, what am I going to do in the next chapter? Because the work that I was engaged in was diminishing as much as I loved it. And so change was afoot. And I happened to be on a WhatsApp call with a friend of mine. She said, we should go into business together. And I said, what kind of a business would we be in? Because she lives in Italy. I live in Canada. She's a super duper salesperson in Italian furniture, and I'm a trainer facilitator. And then as that settled in, I said to her, well, you're in Italy and I'm in Canada, and people love to go to Italy, and I love to travel, and I love to introduce people to new experiences. I said, why don't we do trips to Italy? And she said, no, not interested. And I said, oh, come on, let's just try it once. I'll plan the itinerary. I'll do all the promotion. I'll do everything that's needed. You can just help me from a local perspective where we're going to go and what we're going to do. Even though I'd been to see her many times, looking at it from a tourist perspective was different. So she relented and said yes. And that year was 2014 when we did our first tour, which coincidentally, this is 10 years since that happened, this September. And from then on, in that first year, we did 4 tours or 5 tours that first year. She, Mara is her name, M-A-R-A, decided this was not her thing. We agreed to part ways on a friendly way, and I continued to do this. And so how it started was that I took people to the area Dad's ancestors were from. It's the Marche region, M-A-R-C-H-E, which sounds like a strange Italian word, but it's Marche. And after the first trip, people said to me, where are we going next? And I said, same place. And they said, well, no, we'd like to go somewhere else. Can you bring us somewhere else in Italy? And that's how Puglia came to be, and Sicily, then Piedmont and Sardinia. And so that's the story of where we are today. We do regional-based tours, one region at a time. There are 20 in Italy. I wanted to create a place where people could go to that wasn't, nothing wrong with them, Rome, Florence, and Venice, because lots of people do that. And those are the icons that one has to visit. But I'm more interested in introducing people to places in Italy that they haven't been to. And then the newest addition is Portugal. So for the first time this year, in October, I'll be taking a group to Portugal. Or shall I say, we will be taking people to Portugal because you're joining me on that.
I'm pretty excited. That'll be a new country for me, and it'll be cool to see what, like, I have been on an MP Tours tour before to Puglia, and I had no idea about where Puglia is or what to expect for that tour. And I do not typically enjoy group tours, but I know I'm biased, you're my mom, but I loved the tour. So I'm pretty excited for Portugal.
Yeah. We'll be doing things very much the way we do them in the regions of Italy. So 4 nights in one location, 4 nights in another, and 4 nights in a third location, so that we can really, to the extent possible, immerse ourselves. You know, many tours say, oh, you're going to visit this place and be with the locals. Well, how can you do that for a day or a half a day?
Yeah,
so it's exciting.
So if anybody's for a small group food and wine tour, get on the MP Tours website. We'll take you with us.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're looking at 2025 and planning a couple of maybe new things that will be a reflection of our celebration for 10 years doing this. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, very cool. I am curious to know, as travelers and as North Americans, we often talk about how travel has impacted us on a personal level. And so first and foremost, I'm curious to know like how travel has impacted your life. So yeah, let's start there.
Okay, we'll go there. Well, without a doubt, and I think this is true for anybody who travels, when you travel, you're never going to be the same person. The people that you meet, the conversations that you have, the food that you eat, everything about travel changes you because now it opens you to experiences that you never have in your day-to-day life. And you can't help but be changed by meeting people who have such great talents or who have such wonderful hospitality. It renews my faith in humanity writ large. It reinforces my belief that we are all the same. We just use different words or we have different experiences that we come from. But essentially, wherever I go in the world, there's always a connection with people. So travel has changed me in that it has opened my perspective in life. It has made me less insular than I may have been if I stayed just in one place. And it's made me excited for more of the same. It's had multiple levels of impact, for sure.
Yeah. What's been the biggest surprise on your travels, either like a place that you visited or how you have surprised yourself when traveling?
That's a hard one, Tara. The biggest surprise is that we are more alike than we are different, really. That, sometimes in books or in media or in conversations, people will talk about the Far East or the exotic this place or that, as if it's so different from us. But I guess what surprises me is no matter how exotic a place, no matter how far away it is, we are closer as humans than we expect to be. We feel the same feelings, we express them in different ways, but the world is not a strange place. It's more familiar. And the more you open yourself to seeing other places, the more you see that we are all one.
Yeah, so true. We, of course, also impact the places that we visit. It's not just a one-sided experience when we're traveling. And I know that with MP Tours, you are very conscious about working with and highlighting local businesses because a lot of what you value through your own personal travels has been as local as you can, interact with and support local communities. But do you have any tips for people on how to respect local cultures or traditions when you're a visitor, a foreigner in another place?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I'm reminded of the quote, and I won't get it perfectly, but it's something to this effect, that things are the way they are in another country, not for our comfort, but for the comfort of those who live there. And so with that in mind, I always suggest to people, do a little bit of research, not a ton, find out about the culture, the traditions, the customs of the places that you're going to. And I'll give a very simple example. In Italy, everybody knows about the pausa, that time of the day when lunch is happening, shops are closed, and life slows down. And dinner doesn't happen until 7:30 or 8 in the evening. Now, that's not done to stop tourists and travelers from shopping, from eating, or from having dinner at the time that they're most used to having it. It's because of the life in that country. And it makes a lot of sense to do so. For instance, the Italians value food and eating food in a family situation. It's also so hot in the summertime when we travel that in places where very often there isn't air conditioning, why would you continue to work in such an uncomfortable situation? Go home from school, have lunch, enjoy your family, close the shop, and come back and work between 4 and 7 or 8. It makes so much sense. It's not the North American way, but it is the way there. So for me, learning about the culture and traditions and accepting and being open to them is the best advice I can give. And learn not to judge what the tradition is, but to understand why it is the way it is. And I will say, my view on those traditions may be very narrow because I do focus on Italy, but whatever those customs are, take some time to understand those beforehand.
Yeah, definitely. I remember when you and Dad took the 4 of us kids to Europe. I was 14 at the time, and I was the youngest, 9. So we were all pretty young, and I can remember it must have been in Italy or maybe it was in France when we first ran into that. And for all of us kids, that was new. And we were like, why is everything closed? And you were familiar with this because you had been to Italy several times, but we couldn't was shut down. But yeah, it is just a matter of understanding that things are different, and there are lots of good reasons for that.
For somebody saying once, why don't they realize we're here to spend our money? Why aren't they open? And my response is, they don't care about the money that you have here to spend. It's not about that. It's about their culture and the way they do things. So, and, funny thing that when I took Baba and Nonna over in 2008, my dad, as you know, is pretty strict. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, 9, 12, 6. Yeah. And so when 6 o'clock came around for my dad, he wanted to eat. And in his hometown, I'll never forget when I let our cousin know that my dad likes to eat at 6. They accommodated it for him. The restaurant wasn't open, but several of the older ladies in the town just came and watched us eat at 6 o'clock because it was a curiosity to them. What are you doing eating your pasta and your supper at 6 o'clock? It was rather hilarious to watch them. They were it was like the word had spread in town. The Canadians are here and they're eating at 6 o'clock. Let's go and watch this.
A reverse zoo experience.
Exactly. Yeah. We were the animals. In a fun way.
That's too funny. That can be hard too when you're older. Like, he was how old when he went there to
78.
visit? Oh, goodness.
Lots of fun.
How has travel impacted your career? Because with, like you've already mentioned, your tour company was started in 2014, but we had the pandemic in there as well. And so can you speak a little bit to that?
Could I just cry instead of speaking? It was a disaster. I mean, everything went dark. Our love for travel, the customers, the clients, the travelers, the prospects and the hope for the future, because we had no idea what was going to happen. Of course, revenue, and thank goodness for government programs that helped, because they did help in a very dark time. We all talk about that 5-letter word that I hope I never hear again, but pivoting. What that looked like for me was doing online cooking classes. So because food and wine are really a key part of our travelers and focusing on that for the culture, I, on my own, but also in collaboration with my good friends Maria and Donna Maria at Relish Cooking Studio, we decided to put on some cooking classes. And whether they were, regionally based or others, it was really a bit of a life-giving force during a very, very dark time. And so through that, and also working with my wonderful friend and superb chef, Tara Strawley, who owns Tavola di Terra, we taught people how to make pasta and how to make desserts. And one of my travelers, Rose Widened, who's a superb baker, I also hired her to do some baking classes. So It never replaced what I wanted to do, but it kept me in touch with people who love travel. And I used those cooking classes to talk about travel and to talk about other places. And the return to travel was a very scary one. So my first trip was May of 2022 to Tuscany to visit family. And I was really frightened to travel. I did not want to do it at all. I thought I couldn't do it. And this was on my own. I was pleasantly surprised by such a beautiful trip. It did work well. I did enjoy it, and I was ready to start again. So I wasn't sure whether I was going to do any more travel after the pandemic, but I'm glad that I had that solo experience, and I'm glad that turned slowly. 2023 was, a slow, but growing time.
A tentative year.
Yeah, really. And I think travelers are coming back into it. And I mean, 2023 was that pent up people. Oh, it was ridiculous. How busy it was.
Travel.
It was. And now it's kind of backing off a bit and different travel. And I think people got those trips that they wanted to go on but couldn't go on done. And so who knows what the future will bring. But I'm glad that period is over.
You and me both. Is there a type of travel you haven't tried? You've been backpacking, you've done road trips, you've now been on cruise, you've guided tours. You've, of course, been the head of our family travel. What kind of travel is there left to try, and what would you want to try?
I haven't had much time to think about that. I want to do more river cruising, not sea cruising. I'd like to try some adventure travel, small A adventure.
Are we going bungee jumping, Mom?
I'm not sure about that.
Let's do it.
But
do you want to jump out of a plane, or do you want to go bungee jumping? We can make that happen. I'd be fine with that.
Yeah. No, I think, okay, my adventure travel would be a bike tour, e-bike, not regular bike, some other water tour. So, perhaps the Antarctic or the Arctic. That for me would be adventure. And I know that can come with its own issues. And, I'm on the fence. I thought I always wanted to do a safari. And I have a great company that I would go to for that. But on the other hand, I'm not sure, because I hate zoos. And I find safaris are like an open zoo. And I think, do I really want to do that? But part of me does want to explore that. I'd have to think more about it.
Okay, well, we'll get you back on the podcast after we've gone skydiving, then.
Right. Let's talk about that. Tara, you are the adventurer. You are the one who is open to so much more. And maybe I could bungee jump or skydive vicariously. Send me a reel on that.
No.
Yeah.
So, I know that you have lived in different cities, but I'm wondering if there are any other countries that you would want to move to, either places that you visited and you've been like, holy crap, I would move here in a heartbeat, or somewhere that you've never been that you would, maybe be curious to move to.
That's a very easy answer. I'm not interested in moving elsewhere or living elsewhere. I love Canada. I love calling this my home. Would I like to have an extended stay somewhere? Absolutely. And I'm thinking someplace like South America or Madeira, which is near Portugal. But no, it does not interest me to move anywhere for a long time. I love being close to my children, my grandchildren, my extended family. To me, that is the greatest joy in the world. And that travel is a bonus to doing that. So whatever keeps me close to those I love the most is the best for me. And I know travel is so much easier than it used to be, but home for me is where my family and friends are. And travel is a step away for that.
I think a lot of people can relate to what you're saying in that where home is where family and friends and loved ones are, and that travel is a lovely addition to their daily life. So when I move back to Ireland or New Zealand, you're going to come with?
Yes, to pick you up and take you back home. No, but you see, that's your choice, and that will be your home and what you make it. And I'll love to come and visit you.
Okay, you've got it on the record.
Don't do it.
I make no promises. What are 2 or 3 items that you always travel with? And I feel like one of them, I'm going to speak for you here. I feel like one of them is extra room in your suitcase for all the olive oil that you bring home. But
so
it's not really a thing, but it is. Yeah. What are 2 or 3 items that you always travel with?
I always have my peppermint halo essential oil. It's great for soothing. If, I unintentionally become dehydrated and get a headache, I have that there for comfort. I always have something that I can read in the downtime. Now, whether that's a small book or a short book or something on my Kindle or on my laptop, I can always have that. And changes of shoes. I say one has to wear 3 different pairs of shoes in a day. We do tons of walking, and all the people who say, I wear the same pair of shoes for 10 days, I go, oh no, that would not work. As my cousin Teresa in Italy says, yeah, that too. As my cousin Teresa said, you have a pair of shoes for the morning, you have a pair of shoes for the afternoon, and you have a pair of shoes at night. And so whether that's, running shoes for the walking and then something different just for the change, because if your feet are sore, your whole body aches. And then something a little bit fancy and fun for going out for dinner and the evening. So shoes, books, and essential oils for stress relief or for just, calming.
I'm with you on the peppermint halo, and that can come in super handy if you're on the plane and someone is stinky. Do you remember when we went to France and there was somebody on the plane behind or in front of us who had, I think it was feet, if I recall correctly. Yes. And I know that we used like breath spray or something at the time, but if we had that peppermint halo.
We just sprayed behind ourselves. But now, just surround yourself with that halo. That makes a huge difference. Yeah. Well, and now, I just wear a mask on the plane all the time, and it has multiple purposes.
Yeah. Speaking of like tips for people, do you have any safety tips either? You've done solo travel, you've led group travel, and you've as a family traveler. Do you have any tips for any of those groups from a safety standpoint?
Yeah. And some of them relate to tech, but some of them just relate to how you comport yourself when you're in another country. So how you present yourself in another country. I would say whatever you can do to bring attention to yourself any more than your actual presence there does that. So don't speak loudly. Don't make yourself bigger than you are. Try to blend in with people more than anything. So having maps out and taking lots of photos and yelling to somebody, but, oh, come and see this over here. I think the smaller you can make yourself, the better it is for you from a safety perspective. And that's from personal experience, Tara, because if you remember when we were in Paris and people talk about, the pickpockets at the cathedral and, at the Eiffel Tower and all of that. And here we were shopping in an H&M or something in the middle of the afternoon. Yep. And I went to pay for the things that we had purchased, and my wallet was gone. It was on me in a crossbody bag. But when I think back to our behavior, here we were, in the the change room saying, oh, how does this look? And oh, can you get me another size? Speaking in English in an elevated voice.
Yeah, 5 Anglophones just.
Yeah. And I was robbed of my wallet, €1,500, my credit cards. The only thing that I still had with me, so here's the second tip, was my passport, because it was in a different place. And so the second tip is guard your passport with your life. I carry it with me everywhere we go. In fact, in Italy, it is a law that you must have your passport on you because you can be stopped at any time and asked to identify yourself. Oh, yes. People say, oh, I keep it in my safe in my room. I take it with me, especially nowadays, all the time. It's always on me in a safe, usually under the clothes pouch or something like that. And finally, this may not work for everybody, but have more eye-to-eye contact, perhaps, and a little less lens contact. So taking less photos, perhaps. In some instances, that may work really well. In others, that may not work for people.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty. Well, we are coming to a close. So there are two things we're going to do left here. The first one is as a bonus for the listeners of the Traveling Through Life, a podcast on the go. We are going to offer a playlist. And so what I would like to know from you is what's one song that either sums up your travel style or is a song that reminds you of one of your trips.
You just leave all the easy questions not for the end. My brain is fried. I have no idea. But one song that I do remember is an Italian song. I'm not even sure if I have the right name, but one of the bylines is Perché ti amo, why I love you. Sarà perché ti amo. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but it's upbeat and it's a great song. And everybody, as soon as they hear it, they just start singing along with it. I'm sure you can find it. You're great at doing those things.
Okay. Now, I was wondering if you were going to say, do you remember when we were all in Europe? I think it was the part where we were in Ireland.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this, right?
I absolutely do. My
sing
life
it, Mom.
is...
Sing it.
No, I can't sing it. I'm just trying to get the words. I'm just a kid and my life is a nightmare?
Nightmare. Yeah.
No. I'm just... Yeah, I remember actually that summer when we got back going over the Mackinac Bridge, and I put that on the CD player, and everybody was rocking their heads to it, remembering, I'm just a kid and my life is a nightmare. I think that was, I forget who did it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, to paint a picture for those who were in that very small European minivan with the 6 of us and all of our luggage, we had... I don't know, I had like a playlist or a burnt CD or something at the time, and I think it's Sum 41 or Simple Plan or somebody like that sings
I think
the
it's
song.
Simple Plan.
Yeah, Mom knows, I love this. And the 4 of us kids are packed in the back of this van with all this luggage surrounding us. Dad's driving and you're in the front seat trying to keep everybody happy. And you're turning around like rocking out, I'm just a kid. and we're all singing along. And yeah, every time I hear that song, I'm back in that minivan and I can, it's always...
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, together we made that happen. Thanks for the reminder.
Okay. We're going to finish with a speed round. So you're answering with one sentence. Yeah. We keep this short, sweet, and simple.
Okay.
All right.
Do my best.
Where was your last trip?
Time?
Yeah.
The Rhine River. The Danube River. What am I talking about? Danube River.
And where is your next trip?
Sault Ste. Marie, followed by Sardinia.
And are you bougie or budget?
The first.
Okay. What is your favorite mode of transportation?
Being on a river cruise, a long ship.
You really love this river cruise you were just on.
Yeah, it really was. I love being on water. It has a calming effect on me. And it gets you to the next place. It was wonderful.
Do you prefer, I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway, planned or spontaneous travel?
You don't know the answer to this because I like a combination. I like planned spontaneity.
That is a thing, though. It is a thing.
Yeah, you leave
It is a
enough
thing.
time so that you can be spontaneous. So there are certain things that need to be planned, like your first night, your last night, and then some key things that you want to do, and then you plan for spontaneity. But
And
I'm
this is
not a
what we're doing
wing
with
it
Poland,
person.
right? We're only, oh no, we're going to
Yes.
wing it in Poland. It's going to be
Okay.
crazy.
Okay, I'm up for that because I'm with you, and you're the person I can do that with.
Maybe we should record a podcast episode in Poland.
Yeah, I'd be up for it.
We'll have to come back to that. Okay,
Or
cool.
I'd be down for
Do you prefer
down or up. I don't really know.
up or down? You can say either. Okay. Do you prefer, this is as a participant, do you prefer guided tours or choose your own adventure?
Guided tours in a new place. When I'm in a place for a repeat visit, I like choose my own adventure.
Underpacker or overpacker?
Overpacker. And I need to be cured of this ailment because I'm done with overpacking. Not because I can't carry it, not because of anything other than for the first time in my life, I was charged for too heavy a bag. And that's ridiculous. I don't need to do that. So that wasn't on the river cruise. It was on my Italy. But you know, there are no excuses, but I want to learn how to not underpack, but have enough packing and not be over the limit. Done with that.
You know what the cure is for not underpacking?
No, tell me.
A credit card. You just buy whatever you need if you don't have it.
But that takes time away from your travels. Like if I have to go and buy a pair of pants or a dress because I didn't have one for the occasion, now I'm wasting my precious time shopping. And I don't want to do that.
No, now you're living like a local because you're getting into the shops and you're making some purchases.
But
everyday
I do
purchases.
That. Don't believe me. I support the locals and I shop.
Yeah, I know you do. I've seen the loot when you come home.
Olive oil. Yes. Spices. I have more paprika than I'll ever use, I think, as a result of visiting Hungary. So come by and pick up your paprika.
It's time to have a party.
Yeah.
What is the most overrated destination in your opinion?
Like worldwide?
Sure. It can be one that you've been to, so from personal experience, or it can be one that you just think in general is overrated.
You've stumped me on that one because I think that's a value judgment. Because I say that a place is overrated, maybe, and so I don't feel that that's fair. So I'm going to just squeeze out of that one because I'm going to invoke the mum privilege of saying I'm not going to say because I just think it's unfair to say that my opinion of an overrated is accurate. I think there are places that are over traveled, but overrated, nah. No such thing.
Okay, so I can't ask you about your most underrated destination then?
No.
Okay. Next! Domestic or international travel?
International.
Yeah, international. I knew you'd say international. What home comfort do you miss the most when you're away?
My bed.
What's the best piece of travel advice that you have received?
I'm sure it's something that you have said to me. I'm trying to think all the things that you have said to me that are great travel advice. And I think...
Just do it, Mom. Jump from the plane.
And that's where I was going, Tara, that it's more about, let's just do it. Oh, let's just go. Just make it happen. And give it a try. That's a great thing about you, your curiosity that turns into action. So where I may overthink something, you will just say, okay, Mom, let's go. Let's do it. And I think that's great travel advice because I think if you overthink things, there is no perfection in travel. Just look for the adventure and the joy. And That's great travel advice.
What's the worst piece of travel advice you've received?
Don't stress about time. Whenever you get to the airport is fine. It's whenever you get to wherever is fine. People say that you don't need to get there early. You don't need to be there 3 hours in advance. Don't worry about it. It's just when you get there, you'll get there.
Okay. Window seat or aisle seat?
Oh, always window on the left side, which would be the A seat. I like to sleep on this side. Yes, always.
Yeah. If you could go somewhere in the next hour, regardless of price or whatever else is going on in your life, where would you go?
The next hour?
Yeah, if I was just like, right, go to the airport, you're going, where would you go?
I think I'd go to lunch in BC at my cousin's restaurant, Savio, Volpe. I've been dying to go there for a while. I'd go to lunch in Vancouver.
That. Okay.
Yeah.
Describe yourself as a traveler in 3 words.
Curious, energetic, insatiable.
It's a good one. Okay, two left.
Okay.
What do you think is the best gift for a traveler? Like if you were to gift a traveler something, what would it be?
A book about the place that they're going to before they go. Or a podcast or a video of some kind, depending on what mode they prefer or media.
And what is the best travel app? Do you have one that you enjoy using?
I like Google Maps or GPS for when I'm driving. I don't know if that qualifies as an app, but yeah, I was thinking the best app for anyone, including me, is the app for the airline that you're traveling with. So always have that so that you can always track your flight and get information, because oftentimes the passengers will know before the crew that the flight's delayed or canceled or whatever. And
I like it. Old school.
What's your favorite?
With a new school twist. I really like an app. I really like an app called TripIt. And it's where I send all of my itinerary information, and it's free and it's clean and it's easy to use and you can share it with other people. TripIt is fantastic. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Mom.
Oh, thank you for asking me. You're doing such wonderful things. I can't wait to see and listen to all of the other interviews and all the wonderful people that you've gathered. And I can't wait to learn from them and you as well. It's been fun.
Thank you. And I can't wait to see where you take MP tours next. Can you tell people before we go, where can they find you, your website, your Instagram, your
website
email? Where do you want people to contact you?
So check out the website, which is mp-tours.com. Email me info@mp-tours.com. And send me a message, a DM on Facebook or Instagram. You know how to do all that kind of stuff because you are also my Instagram person. You designed my website, which I'm eternally grateful for. And I get so many compliments on it. And I said, that's Tara. And you do my Instagram. Without you, I'd never have anything on Instagram. Without you, I'd have next to nothing on Facebook. And anything I would put up there would be a mess.
True.
So eternally grateful.
You were being very kind. You had as much a hand in that as I did.
No. Wrong.
All right, Mama.
Okay.
I love you. Thank you for coming on.
As well.
Thank you for introducing me to the world and to travel and to languages and to just how great this place is to explore. Thank you. I love you.
Thank you. I love you. Travel well wherever you go.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao. Ciao.